Hey everybody, welcome back to Bald and Bearded Garage. Today we're going to talk about if your throttle body or intake is making a whistling sound. Now, there are a few things that can happen with that, and if you don't know what the whistling sound is, here it is. Okay, so that is this car, the Mustang, my 92 Fox Body, and this all started after I put my Edelbrock Performer RPM intake on it with a 70mm throttle, aftermarket throttle body. Now, I have never had the whistling sound. I've heard of it, and I eventually had gone for the SVE 70mm throttle body because price, things like that. But I've always used professional throttle products. But they no longer make the Fox Body one, and I was having major problems figuring out the issue. That whistling sound was radiating in the top of the intake, and I'm going to show you some things that you need to look out for to resolve it or figure out where the issue, why it started. My IAC right here was from my other intake that didn't have the issue, and usually the stock ones don't. Okay, the stock intake, you're going to hear, if you read, well, not hear, sorry, you're going to read in forums like, oh, once you upgrade to bigger throttle body, that's a thing. That's wrong, because stock cars nowadays have way bigger throttle bodies. They have the big dual throttle bodies in there where it's more oval. They're not making the noise, so that's crap. Do not listen to it. There's an issue, and I'm going to show you some things from my experience helping other people, and back in the day when I read up on this issue, what people suggested. Now, one thing is, if you have a BBK, there was an issue or just poor manufacturing of pretty much, it's not a bad throttle body, okay? But there are some spots that weren't polished. And one spot that they talk about big time with the BBKs is right here where the IAC goes. Now, IAC is idle air control. One thing is, I will tell you, the whistling sound died down when I turned the AC on, which told me that where the IAC is, what that does is, when you turn the AC on, the IAC will add a little more air. It kind of bypasses more air into it to keep the RPMs up so you don't die down or engine didn't shut off by accident for that. So the whistling sound went down. So first off, I knew my IAC was working. And then a week later, because it was hot outside, I just kept the AC on while I tried to figure out some things about the issue. I could drive it with the AC on, and the IAC supposedly working like it's supposed to. The whistling sound got worse over time, and like I said, it radiated into the intake. That's one of the hard parts about this, is wherever that whistling sound was coming was just echoing through the intake. So it's kind of hard. So first thing is, if you have a BBK, you just got it, however, or you got a used one, the guy didn't talk about whistling sound, or she that sold it to you, check right here where the IAC is. See how smooth, I'm going to try to get as close as possible, but just see how smooth those edges are, and inside theirs was a casting and they had a lot of bubbles, and a lot of people had to polish that out with a little grinder, Dremel, operate Dremel, doesn't matter, sand it up, and that fixed a lot of their issues. I didn't have that. I noticed in this hole right here, like right here, when I put my hand by it, it's a lot of sharp edges, even inside. So I tried opening that out, and nothing was working. So what I did was, while waiting on a new throttle body, because maybe there was a couple issues with the SVE. One is this spring, way too tight. Like, see how easy that is for me to do that? Kind of like stock. That's all it should be. This thing was so tight and bound, I had to unscrew this, and all you do is unscrew this one. A lot of them are pressed on now, pressed on ones, I can't help you with that. I don't know how you would fix that. But I had to pop it off, and that spring just shot out like crazy. It's supposed to have some tension, okay? So, you know, it returns like that. You know, you wanted to do that. But it was like, when I hooked up, I didn't realize if I barely touched the gas, I was going at 3,000 RPMs. And all I thought about was, with all that extra tension, it was going to break my throttle body cable. So, SVE, you need to really fix your spring. And I could have called, it has a 1-year warranty, but I had been stockpiling parts, upgrade parts, and I was like 1.5 years in owning this. I hadn't even tested it. That's my fault. So I bought another professional products throttle body, 70mm off eBay. Like I said, they don't make it anymore. Spent like 120 bucks, I think it was. And it came with EGR, it's a polished one, and it even came with the EGR valve. But while I was waiting for that, it could be a vacuum leak. So one of the things you need to have is just some brake cleaner, throttle body cleaners. And I sprayed around all the gaskets, hoses, everywhere, okay? Just literally spray around it while the car's running. And if you hear the RPMs go up, you know, because if it's a vacuum leak, it's going to run a little rough. And she wasn't running. Okay, it's a he. Don't ask. Daughter named it. So now it's a guy. It sucks. But I sprayed around where all the gases were, nothing changed. So I knew didn't have a vacuum leak that was causing that noise. And honestly, it could be a couple of things. So with intakes, aftermarket intakes especially, you know, you got to make sure what the inlet size is. For the Edelbrock Performer, it is 70mm, okay? So you should get a 70mm throttle body. If you want to open it, go to 75, or, you know, you can easily Dremel it out and make it a 75, but you've got to match that hole with the EGR and throttle body, because if their plates are off a little bit, that's when, think about, the air is going by that and hitting resistance. It's just like, you know, in the mountains, hitting trees, you hear that, you hear different noises, right, when it goes by, like when the wind's blowing. Same concept. The kind of resistance is going to create turbulence and create sound. This is perfectly matched to it. Shouldn't have been an issue. I even checked, eyeing it through with the EGR on their EGR plate, but I didn't see any issues. I've had this intake off and on for years, and I sold my throttle body because I needed to make some money back after having to buy this rolling chassis after my 88 had frame damage. So I had to make some of my money back. But it was just really annoying. I even thought maybe my lower and upper intake were a little off maybe, and it was radiating from there, making that whistling sound. And it wasn't a little whistling sound, as you heard. It's just really annoying. You could drive it, but it was embarrassing. So, like I said, biggest thing is check for vacuum leaks. Using some brake cleaner, you can go by ear. And make sure if you just did like a new intake and throttle body setup, make sure it's matching up right. Make sure that all the passages of air are really smooth. There's nothing in the way. Now, like I said, I've never had the issue. I called BS, like I said, about bigger throttle bodies, cause that. You know, they say, hey, go with AccuFab. It's really good. You'll never have that issue. Well, they're bigger. Why? They make like 105mm throttle bodies. They don't have this issue. So it's obviously not the size of the throttle body. It's your setup or how that was manufactured. And I was at wit's end, and what it was that I thought about was an old trick someone told me to verify if an IAC is not working right. And what it is, so, and I have a spare one right here. This is your IAC on the Fox Body. They're all pretty similar. You'll see there's a little rod in here that this guy, like I said, like the AC clutch comes on, this will open up a little more and get a little more air. Well, so it goes like this. And someone years ago told me, oh, hey, if you want to see if your IAC's having issues, unbolt it and flip it over like this, and that's how it would look like on a Fox Body's intake manifold, and turn the car on and see what happens. You should see, what you should see is that the RPMs are going to go way up, because that's just not how this is set up to be. It's set up to be here, and what this is opening that hole right there, which is just straight open, okay? And that's what happened. It went up from 950 to 1500 RPMs, and I brought it down, but guess what? Once I brought it down, because the whistling was only really at idle, I could barely hear it if I was, you know, gassing it, or, you know, just driving normally at higher RPMs, you know, and so I couldn't really hear it. And that makes sense, just because, you know, you have your engine louder, it's overcompensating that whistling sound. The whistling sound's still there. Don't think it's gone. But once I did that, and then I brought it back down to 950, I had to really loosen the throttle body. Whistling was gone. And so it was the IAC. Even though this IAC was good, never had issues with it, on my stock intake over there, I took it off, and what you do is you get some lubrication, you know, freeze off, WD-40, doesn't matter, as long as it's the lubricant. And all you do is spray inside, and all I do is I shake it out, let it, you know, get around there, and I spray it again just to get it going. I put it back on with the fluid in there, because look, it's gonna get sucked in with the air, combustion. You might hear like a pop, because, you know, you got something flammable in there. If I see comments where like, oh, you shouldn't do that, it's dangerous, probably right. I'm not going to say, but it's so little, it dissipates really fast. So I wasn't really worried about it. Once I slapped it on after cleaning it, I had to bring the idle back up, obviously, because like I said, when I flipped it, I had to bring it back down, because it will run a lot higher when it not properly, when it reversed. And I got the idle back down to, like, I think it was around 900. No more whistle. Never seen this issue before with IAC. The worst with the IAC is I'll notice my RPMs going up and down like you know, 150, 100, maybe up and down a little bit. And then when I hit the get pedal, just give a little more gas real quickly, just rev it up, it would even out. And which again, that could be a vacuum leak or this IAC giving you issues. So now, with that, just remember these key things. Check your IAC, spray around for any leaks. If you put this together, like I said, I didn't have this issue with the stock one, but again, you could still have the issue. Just look where all your vacuum lines are, where all the gasket mates on your air intake, and spray around that. If the RPMs do not go up, you do not have a vacuum leak. Something else is wrong. And again, if you think about the name, IAC, idle air control, I was having RPM issues a little bit. It was really like up and down 50 RPMs, which is not much. So I wasn't really, I honestly just never had this issue with them, besides the IAC going bad, but not a whistling sound. So, like I said, with the IAC, when you're trying to troubleshoot one, unbolt it, check the gasket. You got to make sure that gasket is still in good shape. You can reuse them a little bit. If not, go to order some. They're cheap. I think it's like $10 for the IAC gaskets at most. I mean, we know how prices are these days. Flip it over and see if it changes. If it didn't change, right, then the IAC is really bad probably. But see if that whistle sound goes away. And like I said, also make sure everything is spec'd to the same sizing, because if I put a 65 millimeter on that 70 millimeter, if you could, I don't even know if you could. Actually, you probably could. They'll make pretty much the holes are the same sizing. Just make sure you would have some whistling sound or something, because that turbulence of a smaller going bigger, it's just flat metal. You know, it's not, you'd have to groove it in, smooth it out. But if you want to know, here, I'll have proof, as you heard before, beginning of the video, that, you know, that whistling sound, I'll show you right now how it sounds now with it flipped over. Well, sorry, not flipped over, but with the IAC relubricated and fixed. As you can see, and here, there's no more whistling sound compared to what I showed you earlier in the video. So don't stress out. Trust me, I was stressing out. That's why I'm doing this video, to show you what I did to fix it and test things and what to look out for. Just make sure everything is mated properly, no gasket leaks, and worst case, now I don't know how other IACs are set up. They're similar design, but you know, every GM, Mopar could be different on how everything works. Flip that IAC and see what happens, or turn on your AC like I did originally. I was curious if it gave more air with the IAC, with the AC on. See if that whistling dies down or goes away completely. If it does, I would really go check your IAC, lubricate it, and try it out. But I really hope this helps you all with any of these whistling sounds. And again, if someone tells you, oh, you got a bigger aftermarket throttle body, they always whistle, just put up with it. Don't. You change something, that doesn't mean that whistle, you know, you upgraded your throttle body, that doesn't mean you should deal with that. Check that throttle body first. And like I said, I can't believe it was the IAC, because it was perfectly fine. I swapped it over from the stock one because I knew it was a known good. That's why I never even thought about that. Think about what changed, what you changed, and how is it acting differently, and then just start diagnosing. If you have questions, please put in the comments, like and subscribe. I do really hope this helps you out, because I could not find a video that talked about the IAC being the issue. It was always BBK's throttle bodies and polish out that spot. Like I said, check what you have, and like I said, comment if you have questions. I'd love to hear. I'll try to answer as much as possible. But I hope everybody has a great day. I'll talk to y'all later. Bye.